Hello, my friends. Tonight, I want to share with you a way that you can know some markers for how to know which stage you're in primarily or predominantly. You can be in pretty much all the stages at once, like that, or several stages at a time, but usually there's going to be one stage of recovery that you're predominantly in, and part of it's chronological. Like, again, the recovery can happen a lot of different ways, but here's the markers for, you know, the signs of a stage that's active where you are currently. So stage one type of activation revolves entirely around symptoms, trying to find relief, trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, learning how to regulate, learning how to calm yourself when you're in sympathetic, learning how to upregulate when you're in freeze, learning how to not believe the symptoms, not believe the stories of there's permanent damage, it's never gonna end. There's a lot of doubt and confusion a lot of times, doubt around what the right path is, how to do this as we learn the process. And a lot of times there's the least amount of just overall brain function. So it can be very difficult to just navigate because we're just so activated all the time. Usually it's 24/7 activation and it's just very, very, very intense, and we need to be on and rewiring around the clock. That's stage one style limbic activation. Stage two is quite different. It's much more a matter of changing the deeper beliefs that we have about life and our ways of being, our most essential relationships to the different parts of life. So like some of the common themes around that, the biggest undergirding one is self-worth, because most of us our initial early childhood traumas, that's part of what drives us into limbic impairment. We've been living our whole lives from a place of the only way I can be relationally safe and loved and accepted and good and know and feel that I'm good is to perform in a certain way. And it depends on the person, but usually we have untrue and unhealthy patterns around our relationship to our bodies, to food, to exercise, to work, to performing in general. And that might spread over into hobbies like playing an instrument or a sport or a creative pursuit, an artistic pursuit, you know, things like that, relationships, stuff like that. And so usually stage two is when we're changing those things. And I want to highlight something pretty significant about stage two. This isn't everybody, but it is some people, and it's a pretty significant minority, that a lot of times when we come fully out of fight or flight and like chronologically, as if someone's going through this pretty chronologically, that can happen when you come fully out of fight or flight and freeze more so, and your body's more relaxed, your brain and nervous system are relaxed. Sometimes a couple things can happen. A lot of people gain weight during that time, like 15 pounds or so. That's really quite normal. The body's just like, okay, that was a long winter and we were in massive overdrive. Let's just conserve and store up like crazy just in case it happens again. That's something that can happen. And also it's quite common for your brain to kind of go into reboot mode. And this is actually really healthy. Like your brain has been running on cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine, CAN chemistry, for a long time. That's the fuel it's been using to function and to work. And then when you fully come out of fight or flight, your brain needs to adjust to learning how to run on dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, dose chemistry. And that's very different. It's learning how to run on a different fuel. And it's a change for the brain to do that. And sometimes we will lose a lot of function, or especially brain function, like executive function or prefrontal, like it'll be hard to think or reason or accomplish tasks, or we'll just be really kind of tired, not in the limbic way, but more like your brain, all the energy you have is going towards your brain learning how to operate in this different way. And you'll crave in this phase, if that's happening to you, you crave rest, you crave space, you just want like nothing. I just want like total rest, total sensory deprivation, or just like a pleasant environment, and to not have any demands, to not have people pulling on you or work to do. And again, a lot of times we don't have a lot of function. We don't have a lot of energy. We're not exercising a lot. We're not doing a lot of work. It's just very much like the brain needs to completely adjust. And that can be the case for like 3 to 6 months sometimes in stage two. Not everybody, but I just want to throw that out there because it's a really healthy thing. It's a pretty common thing. And a lot of people get tripped up by that because they're like, oh no, I'm losing function. And it's like, no, you're not at all. Your brain just really needs a chance to reset after everything it's been through. So, and shift to learning how to operate out of relaxation chemistry and self-worth instead of performing and striving and stress chemistry. So that's stage two. And a lot of times for most people, there's still symptoms happening in stage 2, but we have a stronger sense of like that the understanding that it's just your brain is wired in at this point, more so. So it doesn't scare you. It's like the symptoms are there, but there's a distance from them. It's not activating. It doesn't create stress chemistry. You know how to keep yourself separate from that, and they don't get in the way of your living as much or at all. It's much less than stage 1. Okay, and then stage 3 is reintegration. And this is where we start to bring our new brain that we've built into life. And it's really amazing. It's usually a very empowering, exciting, expansive time in our journey in recovery. And also, though, there's a lot of patterns we don't know are there or we can't access until life circumstances bring them to the surface, which I made some notes here of different, so things like, it's really common, not everybody, but a lot of people have the fawn response, which is a social trauma response where we make sure other people are happy and that their needs are met in order to find our own sense of safety instead of meeting our own needs for regulation and joy and fulfillment and meaning. We just try to keep everybody else around us happy because that's what makes us feel safe. And if you've ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, this whole idea that if you don't say no, your body will say no for you. So a lot of times setting boundaries and having boundaries, realizing where our limits are and actually having to tell other people no in respectful ways and consistently in our work environments and our home life relationships and our friendships and any other kinds of relationships you have is a new skill set to learn. Learning communication skills. A lot of us grew up, again, in situations where good communication wasn't modeled. So there's a lot of these different skills. Also just, again, continuing to actually, it's one thing to learn self-worth and learning how to have self-worth when you're not performing and you're not working, you're not actually engaging in any of the behaviors that in the past made you feel good about yourself, made you feel enough and okay, and in a place of absence or emptiness where it's we're just not engaging in those behaviors. And then we start those things again. We start working, we start exercising again, we start performing, we start doing things, not performing, but maybe if you're a musician, you start performing or you start creating art and sharing it with the world or whatever it is. And now there's the possibility for the brain often will come in and be like, wait, so are we doing this for approval? Are we trying to make people like us? Are we trying to earn our safety? Is money more important than my self-worth? All these kinds of things can come up. And then there's just situations that can happen where, there's all these different life situations that can happen that can just bring up old traumas, old wounds that need to be healed because it's just that. And a lot of times they do. If you set the intention to heal, life will bring you all the circumstances you need, both good and challenging, to heal those deeper wounds and also nourish you and meet your needs. So that's pretty common reintegration. And then part of it is all about that. It's all about kind of those deeper things that come up in life. And we're also learning how to address and handle all of those things with life still happening. You're like, okay, this life's not on pause anymore. I'm not in recovery, full-time recovery anymore. So now whatever it is, I've got work, I've got a boyfriend, a girlfriend, kids, spouse, whatever's going on, hobbies, there's a schedule happening and, oh, trauma came up and I have to process it and my kids are sick and how, so we're learning how to handle all of that in reintegration. And again, so symptoms during this time often are mainly absent. They're much lower and they will often surface as a way to indicate, hey, there's an old wound. There's an old pattern here that needs addressing. It'll come up as a symptom. We'll be like, what? And then we'll dig and be like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Thank you, Limby. And then once we address it, it disappears again, overnight. So they tend to be intermittent during reintegration, and generally more mild and more, it's a lot of times it's just one thing that will pop up and be like, hi, and then you address it and it goes away. And then maintenance. So maintenance is once you're recovered. Maintenance is you're fully recovered, but this is something that just like Alcoholics Anonymous, if you've had a brain injury, a stress-induced brain injury, there's going to be a level of awareness and maintenance that you need to do on your brain to keep it healthy for the rest of your life. It's just part of the process of this. And it's something that I'm really passionate about because I want to help people recover and stay recovered. The question is not, can you recover? It's how do we maintain that recovery for the rest of your life? That's the more important question. So at this point, we generally have established practices to stay regulated, cope with stress, and stay attuned to ourselves so that we can address things as they come up. And that's something that's really important, is that, you know, once you feel like you're pretty well settled in life, the thing is, again, our conscious awareness and the subconscious patterns that are running are separate. I think Bruce Lipton says about we operate on about 5% of our brain function is actually present to what's happening, and 95% of our function is subconscious, meaning it's an operating system that's already in place in the subconscious mind, and we don't have to think about it. We just do it. We get up and we instinctively do, you know, we put the left shoe on before the right, and if someone, you know, cuts us off in traffic, either we're like, oh, that person's having a bad day, and that's our mode of operation, or we get all mad because we take you know, whatever that's your subconscious operating system. And the key is that it's important to keep the two connected. It's really key in maintenance to have practices where you stay attuned to yourself. You take time to come back to ground zero, to be fully open to life as it actually is, to your inner experience, to practice complete curiosity about what's actually happening inside of me. How do I really feel about what's happening in my life? What are my emotions about this situation? Am I really regulated? Am I satisfied? Am I living according to my values? Am I taking good care of my body? Am I showing up in my relationships the way that I actually want to be? You know, whatever they may be. And the key is to keep having a practice where at least once a day, or you just create a connection with yourself where you stay attuned and you notice when you're at work, when you're in relationship, when you're in life, you start to notice the sensations, you notice how you feel around certain people, you notice your emotions about things, and you practice staying attuned so you can take cues as to, you listen to your intuition, you practice use logic in life, live with logic, love, and intuition, and really make sure that you're continuing to live authentically and not repressing or ignoring or just shoving away your genuine felt response to life. Because a lot of times when that happens, we start to split away from ourselves. And what that will do is create activation, because we're no longer securely connected and attached. We're not hearing the voice of our body and our inner wisdom telling us which way to go to continue living a life that's fulfilling and authentic and keeps us in dose. And then oftentimes we can end up activated again. So having some sort of daily practice, whether it's, timeout, is always going to be important. Just like anybody who would do if they've never had limbic impairment would take that time out. That's what maintenance is about. That's what that looks like. And it is taking that time out, staying attuned, and really putting that into practice. So those are the different stages. That's how you know what they look like. And I will be starting a new series of workshops on later stage recovery, and I will label them as to which stage they're appropriate for. So this video is flagged for those folks who want to be taking those workshops and to know which one will be appropriate given where they're at in their journey. Love you guys.